Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1 of Upload. I'm going to let you know ahead of time, I'm going to be jumping straight into spoilers, so if you have not seen all of Upload, do not listen to this because you will get spoiled. You have been warned. Okay, so now we're in spoiler territory. In general, how I felt about the season, I thought it was great. The show was funny, and I was curious about it because I brought this up because it definitely, even now having seen everything, it definitely has like a good, it's very similar to The Good Place, where it's like, things kind of seem like they're one way, especially the trailer. The trailer just makes it like, oh, it's all fun, happy-go-lucky, but it's like, no, there's actually a mystery to it. There's actually a lot of heart to it. There's a romantic story, which it kind of felt like the romance and the comedy, but like the dramatic side of the story, you never would have gotten from the trailer. So I thought that was such an interesting element. Like, especially like the circumstances. I didn't actually expect us to actually get to know Nathan a little before he died. I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought it would be because the first episode is actually the longest episodes, because technically it's like 2 episodes in one, because it's like 42 minutes, while the rest of the episodes are like a little less than 30 minutes or a little less, so it was just kind of interesting in certain regards. But nevertheless, getting introduced to his girlfriend Ingrid, I kept looking why. I was like, why do I recognize her? She played Cindy in Briar Patch. So I was like, that's so cool. But a lot of familiar faces throughout the course of the season, but the fact of the matter is, I just thought it was kind of interesting, like the circumstances, like the car malfunction. The moment the car malfunction, I'm like, whoa, you wasn't no accident that killed you. You straight up got murdered, right? And that ends up becoming like a mystery over the course of the season of like, wait, there being like kind of like some, giant conspiracy around his death, because it turns out like him and his friend Jamie, who is Stewart on Blind Spot, which is interesting when you talk about the NBC connections, because the actress who plays Nathan's mom, she played Adeline's mom in the NBC show Grimm. So just, NBC connection and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm going to tangent stuff like that. But I thought it was interesting. They were creating a program that basically would have been the competitor to Lakeview and stuff like that. It's like you could build your own upload and then basically pass it down for your family for free. So it would have, because even later on he meets that dude David who's like filthy rich, and it's like, wait, aren't you? He's like, yeah, I'm that dude. I'm super rich and filthy rich. The fact of the matter is, I was like co-owner or like owner of like one of the second largest company in the world or something like that. But basically, it's like, oh, you were basically going to undercut a $600 billion industry, and you say you weren't murdered, So that's where it really starts ticking off. Like, oh, maybe there's more to this. I just thought that was, such an interesting element. All the while, it's like going back to like Nathan when he was on the death's door. Like, the fact of the matter is how much it wasn't kind of his choice, because it's kind of being thrown at him last minute. Ingrid being like, nah, do this, and even her breaking down. He's like, come on, don't cry. It's like, yeah, I care about you. Yeah, just, don't cry. I was like, oh, because at first you can kind of tell from the beginning she's kind of like, she gets what she wants, and it's just kind of like because it's interesting because there's actually a social status in many different aspects in the real world and like within the confines of the Lakeview and stuff like that. Because it's interesting because later on we find out there's actually a 2 gig area. People because of the family, because of her family, Ingrid is able to have unlimited data, so they can kind of get whatever they want to. They kind of live in a higher echelon of like Lakeview, where the really rich people live. But everyone else, like if you can't pay for that place, which is super expensive, you get in the lower area, 2 gigs. And once you get, and that's a monthly allowance. So you go past that 2 gigs, bam, you're frozen for the next month. And even later on when they dive into it more, it's super depressing. It's like, wait, what? Why is this book only got 5 pages? That's the sample, because like every subsequent page you're gonna have to like pay for the rest of the book. That dude had to pay for a penis, and even Nathan be like, that's messed up. Clothing should be something, it turns into that almost thing of like, it's like, it's more of a necessity than like, what's the word? I don't know what the wording is I'm trying to find. basically saying that it's kind of like a human right to be able to have clothes and a penis, to be able to have your own genitalia in this place. But the dude fashions a cardboard. It's like, look, he's trying to make clothes out of cardboard, those cardboard things. It's like, no, he's making a makeshift penis. I thought that was interesting. Like I said, it's just the level of like kind of showing you disparage between the rich and the poor, and just like, you know, even just within that system that exists like that. Because I love that there are elements to the system where you're like, why is that a thing? Because it's like there are in-app purchases. Basically, because this is all under Ingrid's name, he's like, I want the password, but she won't give it to him because it's like, no, I want to know what you're doing. Like everything that you're doing, everything you're purchasing. That way I feel like I'm closer to you and stuff like that. And I thought that was kind of a neat element that they really kind of heavily deal with in the beginning, just being like, Ingrid is very controlling. Like, it's at parts you go like, does she even really know Nathan at all? Like, the fact of the matter is, during his own funeral, she made a speech about the first human in human history being downloaded for like 4 seconds. It's like, oh, but we lived in that glorious 4 seconds. Let's celebrate that 4 seconds. And I think it wasn't his uncle Larry that was like, yeah, 4 seconds. And no one else at the funeral said jack shit except for that. And even later on, Nathan's like, you literally made your like toast about me. You literally made it all about like someone else and not even me. And it kind of turns into an argument. She's like, don't make me delete you. And he's like, you know what? We will do whatever you want. You know, he's like, I'm being ungrateful. And I was like, that's sad. Like, this is your funeral. She's the one that made all the details. Hell, the people you thought were your friends, they bailed. Hell, even one of your friends, was it Derek, is trying to hit on your girlfriend at your own funeral, which is mad messed up. But him, Jamie, and Nathan have history, you know. We didn't really dive too much into it, but obviously he's kind of a bit of a douchebag and stuff like that. I also love that Luke invited himself to it. It's just kind of like, because at the time he didn't know Nathan's name. It's like, Alicia, he's like, Alicia, where's this particular Nathan? Goes there and he's like, no, you're not the right guy. And when he dressed up in that military uniform, I'm like, isn't that kind of dickish of you? But it was like, I completely forgot. Well, when he met Nathan, he had brought up the fact that he was in the military. Actually, in real life, he lost his legs. I was like, oh, right. I was like, I completely forgot. So I thought he was playing into it. But I love that he just like invited himself to Nathan's funeral, because we learned pretty quickly on that he has like boundary issues and stuff like that. So I know, go ahead and say it. I love the little back and forth between him and Alicia, like the whole thing of her, like him giving her the middle finger, and he was like, hey, give me back my, like, what was it, like my fuck you finger, and she kept taking his fingers, and she's like, oh, my files of fingers and dicks. He's like, when do you start taking dicks? She said, when we run out of fingers. He's like, there's toes, you're just gonna skip over toes? And even at one point she does take his dick and balls, but then like Lucy got involved. But it's interesting because we never die. I want to go further in that relationship, because it seems like he starts shit with Alicia, because I think part of me wonders, well, because you can change how you look in that world. So part of me was wondering, is he actually older than what he actually appears to be? Probably not, but that's why I was wondering, like, is he actually an older guy in a younger person's body or something like that? Probably not. Maybe he is just the way he is the way he looks, but it's the avatar and everything, so you can change how you look. That's what I was immediately thinking, hence why. But, you know, he's kind of a rascal, like, you know. I even love it later on, because I'm all over the place. I do apologize, but like when that whole thing with Dylan, when he came back, I was like, wait, I heard you had tits. I wanted to come see it and everything like that. He's like, I'm sorry they made me like this. Why did they make me super horny? It's like, and Nathan's like, if they could, I'm sure they would remove that. He's like, yeah, but like my angel, she's got legs that go on for days and stuff like that. And it's just like, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. But I also like love that being a thing, because Dylan is like, he's really 19, but he's stuck as like a 6th grader or whatever, because that's when he died. Once again, and it's in a trailer. I love that. He's like, yeah, Nathan's like, yeah, I saw that video. You dabbed on the way down. He was like, that's how you get the likes. And they kind of like, yeah. I like that ended up becoming like a friendship. Tendons and all that. But I thought it would have been interesting if he had gotten an older body, and he did. It's just like he ended up getting a female older body, and he's walking around with his tits. I was like, whoa. That was an interesting, development. But regardless, just a lot of, interesting elements to the show. I also like, there was that dude that Alicia was like lost side off. I forgot his name. He was the dude that she had to pretend to be, and it's like, all right, Lucy was like, you have to pretend to be him and dance with his wife, and then she's like, they're listening to like some like classical music or something, but on the outside she's listening to Web and Nene, and she's dancing and stuff like that, and she's just having a ball. I love that. I just thought that was so dope. But Nevertheless, a big part of this too is obviously Nora. Like, obviously, where her and Nathan started out, I thought was kind of interesting because at first she's just kind of like, being the helpful angel that she is, but she ends up kind of breaking the rules with him and only him. Is like, because you're not supposed to know your name, even the fact is that if you're alive or dead. Because I guess it's like if they know they're talking to a live person, it's going to make them yearn for life. It's like, oh, I'm talking to this live person. Oh, it makes me miss life. The whole point is to keep them out acclimated to like, okay, this is this place. So they don't want you to get too attached. They don't want the people the people staying there to kind of get too attached to life. It's like they've already lost it, so it's time for them to kind of move on. I was interesting because I would have expected it to be a bigger storyline as to Torrent. I mean, obviously, like Nathan threatened to like, he was going to throw himself in there just because it's like he wasn't well adjusted to the place yet. Just because it's like, because it's like when you realize like your entire life is kind of going from in front of you, because for him he's out, because we also learned pretty quickly on that Nathan's kind of narcissistic. There's a lot of stuff like even when he was swinging his niece around, he was kind of looking at himself in the mirror. Driving on a bike, he's looking at himself in the mirror. He's very vain. Hell, even his exes that showed up at the funeral just kind of like yeah, and even Nora was like, no, we're just friends. Like I'm sure I'm not his type, but one of them was like, no, I'm really looking at you and getting to know you. You actually seem like one of his types, and even they were like, geez, this was actually kind of nice. The funeral was nice until that last part. Then it just got super sad the moment like that whole conversation between Nathan and Ingrid, like her kind of being like, oh, I can delete you, and he's like, right, sure, and just kind of gave in. Like that was a moment. It's like, oh, that's a heartbreaking moment, so nevertheless, I'm skipping around a little bit, but I love that moment later on when Nathan brings his therapist who's, possessing that dog, and Ingrid brought her therapist. It's kind of like, yeah, typically only time you bring in two people to a situation like this is like usually during divorce and stuff like that. But he's like, okay. And they're kind of undermining his position and stuff like that because it's like, oh, you only graduated here. So, but obviously her like Ingrid's therapist is a little biased because it's like, oh, look at all that Ingrid kind of does for you. But it's like, yeah, she controls so much, even what I wear. And then she's like, no, I don't. Bam. A pair of skinny jeans pop up on him. He's like, geez, like I can feel my thighs I can feel the pulse from my thigh, so, and he having to wear those skinny jeans. I even love Nathan being like, nah, keep these skinny jeans, they look great. He's like, what? Stop, you really think so? But nevertheless, like I just thought it was kind of interesting. And even when they left, the therapist who's actually who's the dog, I'm like, I guess it makes sense because you want a therapeutic animal, but also get professional help from a therapist, so it makes sense. But I even love when Ingrid left and her therapist is looking at him and he's like, sorry. She's like, me too. So it's kind of like even she sees Ingrid for who she is, so that's a complicated. Hell, even during like kind of like I even love, there was that moment where that lady was like, yeah, that basically she hadn't, like, her husband isn't dead. It's like, oh, we don't say dead, we say uploaded. When my husband's uploaded, he hasn't texted me in so long. It's like, oh yeah, you have to go to some settings and say you have to allow something. And she went through, and then like a whole bunch of texts from her husband popped up. She's like, okay, I gotta go. And then the entire time, Ingrid was like listing off these pros and cons of like the whole situation, of whether or not to keep Nathan's funding for Lakeview going, or whether she should, do it maybe like a couple days out of the week. And even the lady running the group was kind of like pro, because his family and friends would miss him if you didn't do that. And then she was like, con, I forgot she was saying because of her missing, because of the payment she's using on Nathan, like she could be paid, like basically because of the whole thing, she'd have to turn to her dad for loans and stuff like that just to kind of compensate for everything. It was just kind of an interesting element. But nevertheless, circling back to obviously what is kind of essentially the heart of the series is the whole, growth of, Nathan and Nora over the course of the series and the season, and it's actually super adorable, like I said, where they kind of started off at kind of like not kind of a little at odds, but then slowly but surely they do actually become friends. Him opening up to her even opening up to him, talking about her dad, because obviously one of the things, it's like, her dad is a religious, and for him, he wants to go to real heaven. Like, he wants, because I guess this is before the technology was perfected, so her mom wasn't uploaded. I mean, it could also just been a money thing, but I think it was more so probably like at the time the technology wasn't where it is right now. So her mom wasn't uploaded. So for him, he's like, when I die, I want to go to heaven with your mom. Like, going to some virtual paradise or whatever, it's fine and dandy, but that's not heaven. Like, what kind of place could be considered heaven if your mom's not there? But obviously for Nora, it's like she doesn't want to let her dad go. It's like, because for her, it's almost like you're picking a place where mom might be. It almost feels like a little bit like, oh, you're leaving me behind, and like you'd rather take your chances with a maybe rather than a guarantee, and that guarantee is that you'll be here, but I can be your angel and we could talk all the time. Like, we could have that kind of connection. But it's a very interesting dilemma. Because I'm sure, like, I mean, you can actually take real world applications to that, whether it be like, someone, who believes in the afterlife, and someone who's just like, no, you rot in the ground. It's kind of in a similar, theological vein, when you actually kind of think about it. So I think that was kind of a nice, interesting, like, science fictional approach to it. I mean, because obviously, like, it's an interesting thing when you break it down, too, because, like, obviously science and, like, religion, sometimes they go hand in hand in certain regards. Like some people, some scientists have, their religion and their science, but then for some other people, it's just like, it's either science or religion. So it's an interesting, and I think a very neat way that they went about approaching it in the show. At least that's my perspective on it. I thought it was really messed up when Lucy was basically like, oh, you want these deals and stuff like that. You want to be able to sign your dad up for this. You want to get your employee discount and stuff like that, for your dad to be uploaded here and stuff like that. It's like, well, you have like what was it? Like she has like you need a 4.6, but she has like a 4.598 or something like that. It's almost there, and it's like Lucy's such an asshole. It's like, yeah, when she ends up kind of getting let go for a little bit later on in the season, Lucy's like, that thing you're eating, that's company property. And she's like, really? And he says, yeah, takes it, throws it in the trash. It's like, really? It's like, why do you have to be such an asshole? She literally already took a bite out of it. It's like, Lucy is super petty. It's like, man, that's so messed up. It's just like, it's like, damn you, Lucy. Hell, even her later on pretending being Nora, just to kind of end things with Nathan. It's like, why would you do that? Like, you already let her go. Like, why would like that being an issue? Like, why would you, I was like, oh, okay. Cause I guess she needed to be like, oh, I figured, like Nora wants to pretend like there's nothing here, but it's like, oh, the way he's talking about it, oh, there's something here. I got him. I'm going to break him so he can just break his heart so he'll go back to doing what he's supposed to do and not be kind of, I don't know. It felt like it was supposed to be both a middle finger to Nathan and to Nora, but I don't know. It's just kind of like, that's just super petty and unnecessary. It's like, you could have just left it so that Nora's avatar never pops up and it's just like, yeah, Nora doesn't work here anymore. But no, that just seemed a little douchey. Even the fact is you're impersonating her, using her likeness as an avatar. It's like I said, it's just a level to that whole thing I thought was kind of interesting. I did like and think it was kind of, adorable when Alicia was like, oh, wait, is this supposed to be your kid? You go, girl. She's like, no, shut up. When Nora got introduced to Nathan's niece, which that kid's super adorable. I even love that dinner she had with Ingrid. That's where it kind of turned around on me, because I kind of felt a little bad here and there, because I'm like, oh, Nora and Nathan, but at the same time I was like, oh, it is kind of sucky, the whole Ingrid thing. But it's like, it almost seemed like a loveless relationship, because it's almost like Ingrid was in love with, because even later on, like Nathan had been like, you only want to be with me so you don't end up alone. Like, that's what, because you're scared of being alone. That's the only reason why we're in a relationship, So part of me was wondering, like, so that's what made me feel a little conflicted, because it's like, you're in a relationship and everything, and I think you care about him, but it also seems like it is more so for appearance sakes, because it just seemed like it's like, oh, like I'm mourning, but it seemed like you mourning was just more of a show than anything else, rather than just mourning your boyfriend. I don't know. Also, that whole thing of him when he got his, like I said, I do apologize, I'm all over the place, but even like him like getting uploaded, like I guess she didn't know the ins and outs of it. Like, that's why I was wondering, did they mess up or something? Because I mean, what's the point of keeping the rest of, I guess the rest of the body can be used for organs and stuff like that, but it's like when you get uploaded, it vaporizes your head. I was like, Jesus. Okay, but I guess they keep your body just in case of organs. So I was like, oh, I thought it was just supposed to be like, oh, they basically put your body on cold storage because maybe later on you can jump back into it. But as we see, the whole downloading process isn't where it needs to be because Hondu bled everywhere and then his head exploded. So it's very befitting because, like, obviously, I guess like your head just can't compensate for all the stuff that's being down, like the human brain and all that it contains, like your mind, your consciousness. Like I think that's a lot of like data and memory to kind of get distributed down into your body. Maybe, I mean, if you want to think about it from a tech standpoint, maybe it's a situation where it's not as compressed as it should be, so you're kind of getting the raw files and it's too much for your brain to handle. I do appreciate the fact is they have like computer jokes in this. Like not really just computer jokes, but just like the dude that Nathan talks to at first. He's like, oh yeah, like he's like, I'm kind of upset because the way the sun is hitting the water is a GIF, and it shows it looping like a GIF. And even the fact is, he's like, look over there. They never play around with it too much, but I think it's kind of interesting. Millions of people are at Lakeview, but you can only see the people that are 5 levels. I don't know if it was above you, but definitely like below you. So people live like 5 levels below you. You saw them, so that's why the only people you saw were people kind of within that 5 level range. So technically, there's millions of people around all the time, but because of what floor you live on, you only perceive and able to see and interact with those. I thought that was such an interesting thing. Even at one point, he's like, see, there's actually millions of people over there. That's why like the frame rate is like that. And this guy was diving into the water and it was freezing, like it was buffering and the frame rate was terrible. I was like, I don't know why I like that joke a lot. I don't know why like a frame rate joke got me. And even at one point you see him kind of like dive a little in and then dive a little out because it was like it was buffer. It was so interesting. Like I said, it's techie computer jokes, but they hit for some reason for me. I don't know why those got me so giddy. I was like, oh, that's so good. I don't know. I guess it just shows you how much of a dweeb I am. I even love later on when the system gets messed with and everyone turns into basically Minecraft characters. Like they have basically the shape of Minecraft characters. And, you know, it's like, especially it's at that weird time where Nathan is meeting, you know, he's talking to Nora's dad and he shifts into that. He's like, no, I'm still the same guy underneath all of that, you know? And it's just because we never actually got to find out who did that. Because it's interesting because like, there's an underlining storyline about Luds. I think it's probably like a group that is very against. I think they probably explained the acronym, but I'm assuming it has something to do with like, don't download people's consciousness, like death is death, like how that's even elements that obviously like even taking something like on the cyberpunk level in this similar vein would be like Altered Carbon. There were people who believe that death should be the end. There shouldn't be kind of like an artificial afterlife and stuff like that with the whole stack situation. This is kind of something in that similar vein, and I think that's what the LUD's supposed to represent. Because it was like the whole thing was it specifically, because it seemed like it was specifically related to Nathan, but it was just enough to do that, not enough to crash their system. So I mean, it wasn't able to fully crash their systems and bring down the whole uploads and everything, but that's what makes me wonder, was it specifically targeting Nathan, but it hit everyone like that? But that could have been a cover, or it could have just been some strike of being like, oh, someone trying to make a activist point of view of like, oh, down with the uploads type of thing, you know? Who knows? You know, they never really explained on that, but I think that could be something interesting that they could potentially dive into going forward into the future. There's even that element where they talk about that outside area of Lakeview. And I love the AI guys having a personality. And especially because him being like when Nathan, Luke, and Dylan left, he was like, I could come out there if I wanted to. And then his system kicked back in and he just kind of went back. It's almost got like video game logic where like the characters kind of go back into their loop. Because I love that sometimes they could be like, oh, assisting you, a little annoying, and a little... Because at first he's like, at one point later on, Nathan's like, yeah, I'm going down to 2G. Could you get my bags and stuff like that? And he was like, why don't you get them yourself? And I'm like, that just kind of came out of nowhere. Is it because he's going down to a 2G area and it's like, oh, I don't have to respect you anymore. I don't have to listen to you. Get it yourself, 2-gigger. You know, like, that's what I'm wondering. Is that what that's supposed to mean? Or maybe that's just it just being an asshole in the first place. I don't know. It's interesting how that AI system works. I did like the fact that Dylan made it into like a video game where like him and the AI would kind of fight and turn it in kind of like a Street Fighter type of situation. I thought that was actually, pretty dope. I even like that whole complicated story. Not it's complicated, but it's just a weird storyline about Knightley where you basically, like, for one, it's like, I like the fact is, and I think this shows you what kind of person Nora is, and I think like she really resonates with the movie 50 First Dates, which obviously there's a hint of elements of like you could definitely compare and contrast like the story of 50 First Dates with this a little, because even that lady's watching it on like what was it, the bus, or yeah, I want it might have been the bus. Might even been the train. Might have been a train. She was watching it, and then Nora's kind of leaning in, watching it with her. But then later on, she's kind of VR'd in, and she's got the headphones in, and literally right next to her is her like friend or roommate, like having sex right next to her. I'm like, this is an interesting situation because Nora's kind of like saying lines from the movie. Like I think she's playing like the Drew Carey part, not Drew Carey's, Drew Barrymore parts, you know. So, but I just thought that was so interesting. And but the whole nightly thing about like basically you can Yelp review people after you bang, and he was like, yeah, I bet you. He's like, I bet you if that it was, you want to give me 5 stars, and he literally sat around and waited for her to give him the 5 stars. And even the fact is later on, he's like, if you wanted, I gave you a 6 star. If you could have given me 6, you would have, wouldn't you? And then later on, like she sees that he gave her 4 stars, and she's like, asshole. And then later on, like, after like her whole thing with Nathan, where it's like he couldn't get it up with Ingrid, but the fact is Nora turned him on, and then she hooked up with what we later on fire out. His name was it Byron, and the fact of the matter is he's about to talk, and she's like, no, don't talk, and went into it and everything, and he was almost congratulating himself, like, oh my god, like, yeah, like, oh my god, I gave you an orgasm, like, aren't I like the best? And she's like, yeah, and she paid him back by giving him a 4. It did seem interesting at that point in time, because it did seem like, oh, because before she wanted to do all the talking, but he was like, no, let's bang it out and just go our separate ways. But this time he was like, she's like, nah, you're good. You know, so, but then later on, she starts kind of dating with him a little bit, just because her dad, you know, has a difference of opinion about this whole Nathan. It's like, at first, he even says it later on, like, he wishes that she had met Nathan. Like, yeah, Nathan seems like a good guy. The fact of the matter is, I just wish you met him when he was alive, because, you know, a long distance relationship, super complicated. This, an extra layer of complication to, like, the long distance relationship, So he was asking her to kind of give Byron a chance. And it seemed at some point she look at Byron and it's like, all right, he seems like a decent enough dude, especially when you have those conversations he has with Nora. So it seems like, oh, he seems like a decent enough dude. She's like, you want to go back to my place, to yours? He's like, where you want to go next? She's like, okay, my place, yours. He's like, no, like, where do you want to go next on this date? Because he's like, actually, I enjoy this whole talking to you thing. He's like, I know it might sound creepy, but it might make the sex feel better the more we know about each other. And she's like, oh, I really like to hear more, you know, let you know more about me. He's like, oh, God, you're making me sound like such a pervert. You know, I like that being the perspective. I guess it's specific because of what Nightly is, for it to kind of turn into something more than, I mean, I guess it's just the equivalency of like Tinder, how like people do, like Tinder started off as just kind of like a banging, like, app, but then eventually it turns into a thing of like, no, like people have found long-term committed relationships on, you know, Tinder. So I'm thinking it's kind of like it's something in a, you know, similar vein. But you also got to give major props to Nora, because she's literally the only angel we've seen over the course of the series literally go above and beyond, which you can make the argument it's like that's kind of her overstepping boundaries and stuff like that. That's why she constantly got in trouble for. But the fact of the matter is, like, when Nathan was in trouble, like, the fact of the matter is she's neck deep in this investigation trying to figure out what happened to Nathan, and then people end up dead. I loved his cousin friend. I love when we get to reveal at his funeral, it's like, oh, that's his cousin friend, and she's not actually a private eye hired by the family. She's actually like a middle school gym teacher or something like that. And she had this weird habit of like, she was almost talking like there was an audience there, and she's like, haha, I did, haha, and she would turn to the side and kind of laugh, but there'd be no one there, because she was like, oh, like, Ingrid, you think you're slick or something like that, when she was watching that recording of Ingrid, and she was like, ha, and she was kind of looking to the sides like she expected people to be there to kind of respond. You know, they never actually talk about it. Like, I guess they never found out what happened to Fran, which is kind of sad. And, you know, because Fran was neck deep in this investigation trying to find out what happened to her cousin and everything. So I thought that was, you know, it was an interesting story. I was like, oh, I thought like that was going to be a consistent thing over the course of the season, but it's like, nah, partway through, Fran kind of just disappeared from the storyline. It's like, yeah, we don't know what happened to, you know, what happened to Fran. She just kind of disappeared. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a, you know, shame. But like I said, because even by the end of the season, I mean, not unless it was something in the background, but main storyline wise, they never brought, like, after Friend disappears, they brought, like, Nathan's niece brings up the fact is that they haven't seen Fran, and that's the last you hear of Fran in the story. To my recollection, like I said, not unless there was something in the background. But even like I said, speaking of Nora, like her like going like with Ingrid to track down Nathan's mom when she's kind of shipping other, like trying to figure out other places, and she lands at that dude's place, and he's like IR. She's like, oh, you mean like AR? He's like, no, not augmented reality. I forgot what that I stood for, but basically it's almost like a projector version of AR. So it augments your reality to a certain extent. It's more like you're getting, like I said, a projector view of things. It's like, oh, isn't this amazing and stuff like that. But the fact is, you can't be too picky because this is like, because their family couldn't really afford anything. It's also an interesting storyline I should also talk about. They don't really get into too much. Is the fact is, it's like, oh, Nathan, where's your dad? Like, the fact is, he had that memory of his dad. Like, oh, when's the last time you played sports with your dad? Let me see a memory of that. And it's like, I wanted a more current memory is what Nora's dad was asking, but it is like, oh, this is the most current one. It's him as a little kid. So I was like, oh, that's something they didn't really get into too much, but because immediately the moment started happening, like Nathan was like, yeah, let's move on with the tour and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's kind of depressing when you actually kind of break that down like that. I even love that line from Nathan when he was like, oh, he had to like, he needed to have some form of integrity breaking up with Ingrid because it's like, because, he was trying to break up with her, to find some other means of paying for staying in Lakeview. And like, basically his mom was like, screw integrity. I was literally about to bang a lawyer just to keep you alive. And Nathan just kind of looks at her and she's like, I'm sorry, integrity's cool. I love that whole thing. So that was a nice bit. I even love later on when she's like, yeah, I didn't want to say anything because it might, I didn't want to influence your decisions or anything, but I was never too fond of Ingrid. And he's like, really? God, Mom, you hit it so well. Like, so I love that. That's something I meant to circle back to. Despite how I was like, oh, I have complicated feelings for Ingrid, the fact of the matter is the episode where she would spend time with his niece, it was actually super adorable because obviously once again showing you like, oh, the way they talk to each other. It's a very dysfunctional family. They talk mad shit about each other, and then and the entire time they're talking mad shit about her just because it's like she's eaten like food. She's never eaten a food with a bone before because like all the food is obviously like synthetic and made and stuff like that. So they're cracking jokes about her stuff. Like even at one point, Ingrid's mom is like, oh yeah, she does want some of your food that you're cooking, that dessert or whatever that Ingrid was making, and it's like, oh yeah, like oh, go ahead and gobble it up, piggy, or something like that. And then Ingrid's like, get the hell out. And they're like, wait, what? Oh, like, and it's like, oh, in that moment I was like, holy shit, look at you standing up for her. Then even getting her hair done, like Nathan's niece and everything. So it was like an adorable moment. And even her being like, oh, you think, Nathan's lonely? She's like, I worry about that sometimes. So it's like, it's showing you that there is a part of her that does care. But, is that completely outweighed by the fact is that she is just maybe too afraid of being alone, that, I mean, people are complicated, so it could be, a combination of the two that kind of, makes up her character. They're also, speaking of characters, freaking what was that dude, the professor or whatever, I think is his title. He's literally in the background. I was like, is that going to turn into something? We just see him like grumbling sometimes, like he'll be in the background, he'll be in like one scene, he'll say something and he's such a grump, but we never found out what his deal was. It's just kind of like he's in the background, la-di-da-di-da sometimes. And I'm like, he just pops up, say something a little grumpy and just move on. I'm like, what the hell is that about? We never got too deep into it. But over the course of the season, they did a really good job of bouncing it from person to person, like who is the suspect, who's the person behind all this. Because at first it seems like it might be Ingrid, especially from what Fran found. But then later on when she's talking to Nathan's niece, she gave her something that's like, oh yeah, like I snuck back into the car to get this because I wanted to wrap it around me to kind of have something to think of him. Like this is before the accident and everything. And because she set the like automatic to be like, basically choose to protect the driver more than people on the outside. Once again, it almost turns into a little bit of a trolley situation. Hence, once again, comparison to The Good Place and stuff like that. Not trying to make a direct comparison, just like a set, like I said, aspects of just like how the story is told in certain avenues. Like it just reminds me is what I'm trying to say. But the fact of the matter is, So it kind of first seems like it's Ingrid, then it definitely seems like it's Jamie because he keeps dodging his calls, and then there's the whole thing about the business. So you're like, oh man, Jamie must have screwed him over in the business. But then later on, Jamie does actually answer it because, like, he's like, no, I'm busy right now, dude. I'll call you later. It's like you kept ignoring his calls over and over again, so you look super suspicious until later on. He's like, did you murder me? And he's like, and Jamie's like, no, I didn't. And it's like, you didn't mess with my memories and stuff like that. And Jamie's basically like, I slept with Ingrid. Like it was a mistake. She threw me out and stuff like that. That's why he was avoiding, because maybe he felt like, yeah, you're my best friend and everything. And now that you're gone, like I think what it really amounted to was like he felt bad about it, and he just like seeing Nathan, like, I think seeing him in that state, like he could never personally make it up to him. And it's like he's stuck in this perpetual forever, still dating Ingrid and stuff like that. So maybe that's what made him like feel terrible about it. He never really. That's just based on what they were saying, made it seem like that was it. They never really went too deep into it otherwise than that, but I'm assuming that was the main reason. And even being to the point, he's like, the fact of the matter is, you better hope I never do get downloaded again into like a clone body, because I'll come there and kick your ass for the whole Ingrid thing. And he's like, and Jamie's like, actually, I like that, because it would mean having his best friend back. So I just thought that was such an interesting, like I said, it constantly like weaved and turned like who could be responsible, and then it heavily goes to like, oh no, Ingrid's dad's involved, because to be fair, like their money is tied up in this whole Lakeview thing, because they're connected to this, obviously, because they have unlimited data and stuff like that. Is it their connection to Lakeview, or is it more so like because they have friends in powerful places? But we find out later on, like, when, like, because there was that whole update situation. They're going to try and get, Nathan has to stay awake during the upgrade to make sure, because it can block out his memories and stuff. Like any, like, memories that might have been blocked could get unlocked. And so, which I also love, the fact is Nora used all of Lucy's like pigs in a blanket to keep the doors open. I don't know, it's kind of like a silent fuck you, and that I appreciate it. I don't know why. I like I said, Lucy kind of, she's mean, but nevertheless. Which, before that whole upgrade thing went down, that was actually super adorable. Him having made her something. He's like, yeah, this is something near where the first place I made you laugh. And this was in that same area. I was kind of limited on stuff I can use, but he gave her a little kind of, he made her something to kind of wear, and I was like, oh, it's super adorable. Them kissing as the upgrade is happening, because it actually kind of looks like almost like an aurora borealis, and it looked actually super beautiful and stuff like that, especially like they're kissing under the moonlight as like the night sky as the aurora is coming across the upgrade. But then there's that sad decision that Nora has to make, because it's like upgrading this whole thing might restore all of his memories, sure, but it might erase everything that he's been through up to this point in time. And obviously she felt like finding out the truth is kind of a risk that needed to be taken, and she was just hopeful that it all worked out. But at first it seems like it didn't, because he seems like a dick again. You're like, oh man, that sucks. But then later on he explains to Luke, he's like, no, I remember everything. And Luke is like, oh, thank goodness, because like that spark we had, our friendship, that's a story that, lightning can't strike twice. And I love that it's like, well, you became friends because you basically forced yourself upon him. You just like start embedding yourself. I even love later on when they're getting personalized ads and stuff like that, and Luke runs up next to him, and it's like, it's one about like, oh, how you're invading people's boundaries and stuff like this. Number 4 will shock you, Luke. So showing that they're very specifically added towards people, and Luke was like, okay. And then Nathan tried to be like, no, dude, it's not like that. It's just like, I thought that was kind of neat. But the secret is that we end up ultimately finding out is that Nathan actually was underselling Jamie. That basically he was taking the money, like Jamie wasn't the one that screwed over Nathan. Nathan's the one that screwed over Jamie. He was going to sell some of, like, a copy of the stuff to Ingrid's dad for a high price. To be fair, his motivation was always, I don't care about who gets the credit. He said, my thing is, I want to take this program so that I can make money for my family. So it's like, he had, good intentions and all of that, but he kind of backstabbed his best friend in that, which makes you wonder, did Jamie know? Well, part of me was wondering, were there more memories or not, but based on what Nora said and based on what Nathan says later on, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like all the memories were restored. So, I mean, to be fair, we know that Nathan was kind of a piece of shit back then. Even he recognizes it now, because this whole experience gave him a new outlook on everything. gave him a new perspective. Even that conversation with Nora's dad, he said that even Nora's dad kind of gave him some things to kind of walk away from this whole situation and talk about and think about. Sadly, this whole thing doesn't impact how Nora feels about him, because because for her it's like the fact is you're willing to screw over your best friend, now makes me worried that you might be capable of doing something like that to me. Like, if I give you my heart, who's to say you won't hurt me like that too? So it's a complicated situation, because Nathan is who he is now. Like, he has all his old memories, but he is a person he became over the course of the season. But the fact of the matter is, it still shows that he's capable of that, and is like seeing and knowing that exists in somebody's heart. Because even later on, her dad tries it. He's like, but the fact of the matter is now but the fact is, this shows you that Nathan, at the end of the day, he's like, Nathan, talking to him and everything, I feel like he's a good guy now. Like, before, like, you had a very perfect version of him, because it's like, you had access to all his memories, so you got to know him on a level like no one else did. Like, you kind of got to know him, better than most people would know him. And so now seeing this side of him, because it makes you think like, did I even really know you at all? And this is what you're capable of. But her dad was trying to explain like, but that also shows you that people are flawed, because even that was her whole thing about like, the system isn't perfect, because life itself wasn't perfect, so that made the upload, the whole Lakeview situation even more true to life and stuff like that. So it was just kind of an interesting element, that ended up causing for their relationship. At the same time, like, that assassin's coming after her. There was even that cop that got stabbed at one point. I'm like, he just did that in public. But then there was like someone over the radio was like, I'm not letting you. But I guess that was just like her boss or whatever calling. But part of me was like, was that like supposed to be like a setup or something? Was supposed to make it seem like, he killed someone in public? Got to run for your life? Or was that just kind of like poor timing, where it's like, hey, I'm not letting you sleep on a job or something like that? But part of me expected to be like, is she faking? Is this some part of some like larger scale thing? I don't know. I mean, truth be told, is they straight up murdered both the guy that Jamie and Nathan had met with about their program or their app. Then Fran got murdered. So, and now that police lady. So that's why or security lady. So that's why I was kind of like, maybe there's more to this. Maybe, I don't know. That how Nathan dealt with that was just crazy. I didn't expect that. Like, the dude's in the elevator, Nathan kept going up and down, up and down, up and down, and he kind of looked away. I was like, what was that about? And then Nora is leaving, and the elevator door opens, and there's blood in there. I was like, I didn't know you did that to him. Oh, no wonder you were looking away. I was like, I wasn't expecting that. That's super gnarly. That was nasty, dude. Holy shit, you straight up murdered that dude. To be fair, he was trying to kill Nora, but it's like, also it's like, thinking about it outside of the realms of the show, it's like, how do you explain that? Well, I mean, from the outside perspective, it just looks like a glitch, like the elevator malfunction or something, That was actually pretty dope, because of the thing that Nora gave him from the IT people, it made it so that you could affect the code. So anytime like Nathan touched something, he could affect the code and shape it to kind of what he needed to, and that's how he was able to keep up with Nora while she was on the run. And sadly, the entire time this is all happening, he's using up more and more of his data. At this point in time, he has a little less than a gig left. That was kind of like heartbreaking. And then Nora's pouring her heart out to him and everything. And he's trying to tell her, but she's like, no, like, she's like, I know this might kind of backfire on me and, hurt me in the long run, but I'm willing to give it a try. And Nathan, and it's like, he's grayed out because he fell into the, like, he ran out of data. So it's like, I don't know if she knew that or whether she just thought like he hung up. I don't know what to make of it. We see later on, because basically it turns out like her dad has friends who are connected to Lud. It's like they could get you off grid and away from all this. So she goes with Byron, which that's a complicated thing, because he's like, oh yeah, like, we can get away with us. She's like, yeah, shut up, let's just go. He's like, oh. And then Nathan wakes up, because I was about to be like, that's the most depressing way to end this. Gets a little more depressing because it turns out like, Ingrid shows up, and I was like, okay, where's this going to go? And then she like puts a credit card near him to give him another gig. And she's like, don't worry, I'm here for you. The fact of the matter is I've uploaded myself so we can be together forever. It's like, he literally broke up with you. But for her, it's like, because she even admitted it to her dad, it's like she wanted to save Nathan because she loved him and everything. So, because Nora had figured out that this goes beyond just Ingrid's dad, that maybe there's someone else, because it has to be someone so powerful to be able to pull strings like this, because even her dad, he's rich and powerful, sure, but he's not that powerful enough to kind of be able to mess with someone's memories on such a, like, interfere with an organization like that. So it makes you wonder, was it someone on the inside of Horizon? Was it someone on the outside? How this whole was it free beyond situation goes into play. Because obviously that's kind of a representation of all the work that Nathan and Jamie worked on, of things being so small scale. Because the thing is, did they actually end up getting the code from Nathan? They probably didn't. Maybe they did, and that's why they killed him anyway. It didn't seem, but I mean, the whole thing is about covering their tracks, but I'm not 100% like, have they actually taken advantage of the code that they got access to? Maybe not, but it just all, and moment he finds out Ingrid's there, he's like, what? Like, he's like, your heightened emotions makes you burn through your gigs, because it's like you think too much and it burns through your gigs and stuff like that. And he goes back to Gray, and it's like, oh, that's kind of a heartbreaking and depressing. At the time of re-recording this, it hasn't been announced whether or not there's going to be a season 2 of Upload. To be fair, it literally just came out today at the time we recorded this, so it's like too early for something like that to really be known. But obviously, in certain cases, they renew stuff ahead of time. This is one of those situations. It's most likely going to be determined by, from what I was reading, like the viewership and obviously like how well received the show is. But I'd really love to see what they do with a second season, because obviously there's definitely plenty of story to tell, because we still haven't figured out the root to this whole conspiracy. Once again, justice for Fran. Have we forgotten all about her? I won't lie to you, there was a part of my brain that was like, you don't think his mom's fine? I was like, no, like what would her motive be? But, because like I said, I quickly bounced that out of my head, but it's like, Nora's not going to be at Lakeview because she's going to be with Byron. And now also, like, because Ingrid's there, what that means for Nathan. I mean, obviously, he broke up with her. He's in love with Nora, and Nora's in love with him, but he hasn't had an opportunity to tell her the way he really feels. He told her before, but sadly, it was Lucy. And obviously, when he got the chance, Nora was like, maybe you should talk to Ingrid first before you tell me what you told Lucy. So she opened up her heart, but because of the gig situation, he never had a chance to open up his to her. And because she's going to a place off grid, he's not going to have the opportunity to. Maybe that's going to lead to Nora kind of leaning more on Byron, but maybe it's going to be a situation of her being like, no, I don't know. It depends on how, everything ends up playing out in that regard. Obviously, I'd love to get to know even more characters. Like I said, we spent some time with Dylan. We spent some time with Luke. We got a little bit here and there with some of the other characters, like that couple. That dude wanted, like, he likes to pretend to be sick, even paying $1.99 just to sneeze. And his, I think it was his husband, is taking care of him and stuff like that, because they were like high school sweethearts and stuff like that. So they uploaded at the same time. It's actually super adorable. But the fact of the matter is, it's like maybe get more characters like them and, get to know like some of the more people in the background. I'm also curious because they even set this thing up near the end where it's like some of the concierge, wasn't it? Yeah, it had gotten updated to be a little more like, oh, asking how are you? And Nathan was like, what the hell is this all about? It's like, yeah, like we've kind of been upgraded a little bit, but only us. The rest of the staff, virtual staff and stuff like that, the AI's like, they're still kind of like idiots or assholes type of situation. So I was like, what that might look, going forward into a second season. Probably expanding upon Lakeview in general, because obviously because of the upgrade, like we saw like maybe like some whales and stuff like that. Like the world of Lakeview changed because of the update and everything. Obviously, like some of the food options, even taste, because initially it was only like, wasn't it like sweet and savory might have been the only things, because it's like, oh yeah, that's why everything tastes like kettle corn or something. That was like a bit. So all that, I'm curious to ultimately see like, what they could do with all that in the second season. I think they could take it in a very interesting direction, keeping both the humor, obviously, but also the seriousness of the story, and obviously expand upon like this whole upload system even more. And obviously, it's probably going to most likely still be a background thing. It's a whole thing with the whole trying to download a human consciousness back into like a clone body and stuff like that. But also like this Lud thing, whatever it is, like, Nora's potential mix up in it because her dad's connected to it, and like probably that being maybe a bigger thing. Like I said, it's an element here, but it's mainly in the background the entire season. But like I said, maybe it has something to do with that attack on Lakeview, where like everyone like I said, turned into almost Minecraft level characters. Like I said, I really hope the show gets a second season because I'd love to see what they do with it. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.